All
Okay,
right.
we're live.
Okay, wrestling fans, Kurt Clape here with highschoolwrestlingmatches.com. We apologize for the delay. It happens sometimes with technology, unfortunately, and especially when you're working with free technology. So what we got going on tonight is real cool. If you've wrestled in Utah or been involved in Utah wrestling for more than a day, you know our guests tonight. You know Craig and Taylor Lamont. But what's special about tonight is Taylor is recently one of the world bronze medalists in Greco for junior worlds just a couple weeks ago, or even less than that. I'll let him tell you more about that. But Craig, welcome to the show tonight.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And then Taylor, where are you at? Are you at school right now?
No, I'm just downstairs. The Wi-Fi's good.
Gotcha. And then we got Brian as usual, right?
Yep, I'm glad to be here with two of my favorite people.
Taylor, obviously we wanted to talk about what happened.
Well, yeah, Taylor, let's tell us a little bit about your journey there in France and how that went.
Well, I actually didn't fly into France first. I flew into Germany. We were in Germany for a week. We flew into Frankfurt and took a 2-hour train ride to Freiburg, and we stayed there at their Olympic Training Center, and we trained there for a week.
Well, that's really cool. So who were you training with there?
Our team was there, and then but there's a club that trains at that Olympic Training Center that we were training with. The coaches were there. It was fun working with the German team. It was mainly their senior athletes, so it was fun to work with those guys.
So Taylor,
so how is the German team?
Taylor, back up a little bit. So to qualify for Worlds, what's the qualifier for that team?
It's down in Vegas. It's just junior nationals. It was down in Vegas during the same time as the regional tournament, and I qualified down there by winning that tournament. So that was good.
And Craig, did you get to go with him?
Yeah, down to Vegas?
Well, yeah, I assumed you went to Vegas.
/ France.
Yeah, I go everywhere with Taylor. He's he might fall apart without me.
Is that true, Taylor?
No, that's not true.
You might soar to a new level without you. I don't know.
I know.
Yeah, maybe you've been holding him back all these years, Craig.
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah, he would have been a 12-time state champion. He would have won it in 3 different weights.
Yeah.
No, so Craig, you're a good man, and I know you've meant a lot to Taylor, right, Taylor?
That's right.
Yeah. So fill us in a little bit. Tell us about your relationship with your dad, and as a father and a coach, and how that's operated to help you be successful.
Well, I mean, since day one, he's been my coach. I mean, he got me on the mat when I was 3 years old. Bought me my first pair of wrestling shoes, and many more after that. Got me on the mat, coached me since day one, and not only coached me, but helped me with the mental aspect, with the physical aspect, technical aspect. I mean, he got me to the level of where he got me to the highest level that he could do to help me get to even higher levels.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about you. So you go out to France for this tournament, or eventually you end up there, right?
Right.
And so how many people are, say, in this tournament, in your weight, in your bracket, and who were some of the main guys to beat?
I looked at my bracket. I think I had 28 different countries in my weight. That's about the average there. I had known a few of the kids in the weight. I knew the German guy was a cadet world champ, and I knew he was a European silver medalist up at the senior level, and I knew that the Azerbaijani was a European champ that year in the junior level. So I knew there's a couple tough guys.
And so, how many other Americans were you the only American in your weight, or?
Yeah, only American. They send one away.
Well, that's pretty neat. So So you had to. How many matches did you have altogether out there?
4 matches.
4 matches. So, tell us. So you bronze medal there. So and so how do you feel about that? Yeah.
Well, feels great. Probably the best moment of my life so far.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Taylor, tell us about the semifinals, because that was pretty incredible too. I know it didn't go how you wanted, but I want to hear you tell that story.
That's the one thing I don't like about Greco is that if you have 2 evenly matched guys on the feet that are just pushing and you can't take each other down, it really just comes down to the referee's decision. I've lost. That was my 3rd match that I've lost at the World Championships based off of referee's decision. I lost 2 last year, 1 in the semis and 1 for the bronze medal match last year. That was all came down to the referee's decision because we couldn't take each other down, and when that happens, the referee has to pick someone, and it just happened to be the other guy. I guess he pushed a little harder than I did.
Jeez. Yeah, they put too much in the ref's hand. I agree with that. That's terrible. Who was it in the semis?
That was Germany.
And where'd he end up?
He ended up 2nd.
Okay. So who won it at your weight?
Was it Turkmenistan or Kyrgyzstan? It was one of those 2.
Kyrgyzstan.
One of those stands. I know they're tough. Remember the days of the Soviet Union? All those republics would be part of the Soviet Union battling just for one team. And I know Erkin came from Eastern Europe. I know there's some tough wrestlers out there. But you lost a tough one in the semis, Taylor. So how did you mentally get back into it so that to win that bronze medal match and come away with that medal?
After I lost that match, I knew I still had 1 more. I knew I'd be in for a medal. And last year, losing in the bronze medal match was probably one of the biggest disappointments of my career, in my opinion. It crushed me. So I knew it wasn't going to happen again, and I was confident going into that bronze medal match.
Is this like one of those things like 4th place is the most awful place to finish because there's no medal? Is it kind of like the
medal? Yeah, you trained all year for that tournament, and you don't come back with hardware.
And technically, it's like 5th and 6th place the way they do it internationally.
3rd and 5th, yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely, you want to have that medal because that means a lot. I heard. So you're gearing up for UVU. I guess Greg told me, or Coach Williams told me, that your plan is to redshirt this year. Is that correct?
That is the plan for now, yes.
And what do you think about that?
Originally, I wasn't planning on redshirting. I thought it'd be cool to start with my brother as a freshman. But as I thought about it, I thought, why not just have another year to get college experience? I've trained this whole summer focusing on Greco. I haven't touched legs since Fargo. So it'd be good to get another year of attacking some legs, getting back into the swing of that before I start my college career, because I want to start it with a bang.
Sounds good. I guess Grant, he's going to be, 149 or 157? I can't remember what it...
149.
149. So I hear, Coach Williams said that there's another top recruit that you've wrestled before coming up from California that's about your weight. You seem pretty excited about him. So you guys wrestled a few times before? Or?
Yeah, we wrestled at Flow Nationals in the finals. A tough match that I ended up coming out on top of. Well fought match. And we've drilled. He's been here all summer, and it's been fun to get to know him. He's a great guy, and it's going to be fun wrestling with him through my whole career. He's a tough opponent, and so we're going to push each other to new heights.
So Craig, what was your role? Are you right there in the corner with Taylor? At the nationals there, and
I've got a good relationship with the head Olympic coach, Coach Matt Lindland. We struck it off good friends a couple years ago, and he's pretty much invited me to be on whatever coaching staff I want to be on, which is nice. He actually invited me to go on all their camps this year. They trained in Azerbaijan for 3 weeks, and I got to be part of the coaching staff down at a senior level and the junior level camp at Colorado Springs this year. He invited me to go down to Brazil with him, the Olympics. But obviously I've got a job and I can't take that much time off work. So the nice thing is that he actually considers me a part of the coaching staff because I've been in that pool coaching and I've been in other international coaching assignments. Then I'm already credentialed, so I've already got the badge. I've already got the coaching uniform, and he just let me be in the corner. So it was nice to be there and actually be mat side with Taylor and not just in the stands. So yeah, it was fun.
Taylor, tell us a little bit. What's it like? Were you glad that your father was there, actually in your corner during this competition? I imagine that's comforting to you, right?
Yeah, he's coaching my whole life, and he knows my style better than anyone else, and he knows what I need to do. And I talked to those Olympic coaches and my world team coaches, and they told us to write down certain things to tell our coaches for them to yell at us. So my things for my coaches to yell at me were move my feet get to my tie, and if I was ever down to keep moving. If I was ever on top, they would yell to get my lock. So I had 4 things that the coaches would yell at me specifically. So it doesn't really matter who was in my corner. They were instructed to yell those 4 things because those were the things that helped me the most. And it's always good to have my dad there because he knows my style best, like I said. And yeah, it was comforting.
Plus, I got to yell at the refs. I don't get to do that stateside.
Well, there you go. So this is going to be a really bizarre question, Craig. And so,
what's it like? Hold on, before you move on though. What's it like interacting with the refs? Because I always feel like internationally they ref it so differently than we do. And maybe I don't know. I just some of their calls I just don't get. But
there really is no interaction. The officials all speak different languages. Even though French is kind of the traditional language of international wrestling, that all of the officials officiate in English. So most of them don't know how to speak English, but they have to know enough to get through the clinic and to be able to say the language. So when they say passive or they say stop or they say action, that's all. It's all in English. The problem is that there's a culture in the U.S., thank goodness, that respects and honors the officials. The college rules, the high school rules, even the fans. Unless you're an Iowa fan, you're expected to be somewhat respectful, right? To the no offense.
I'll bring that up with Andy Unsicker next time I see him there.
But no, I'm close friends with a lot of Iowa fans and wrestlers. It's just what I'm saying is that internationally, they know there's so much on the line, and the fans and the coaches know that they start yelling that, especially in Greco, right? Passivity is a big deal.
Blue passive, you always hear me.
They'll say red passive and blue passive, and they'll yell it, and they'll yell it, and they'll yell it, and when calls go wrong, they boo and they yell and they scream, and so it's hard not to get caught up in that because you feel like you're losing a battle. It's like the U.S. coaches are the only coaches in the whole world that don't yell at the refs, and so when you're sitting second chair internationally, which I'm usually sitting back, or sometimes I'm in the stands, I feel like that my role, actually my responsible role, is to create some verbal, some emotional pressure on those officials so that
that's part of the game.
It's definitely part of the strategy on an international level. When you've got 60 people yelling that blue is passive, it's hard for those refs to call red passive. right? And so you got to have a counterbalance because they'll yell even louder when their guy is passive, right? And so you got to get involved in the yelling match a little bit. And I've actually become pretty good at that. Luckily, we didn't have to do a lot of yelling in Taylor's matches.
What's the fan base like at a junior nationals? Do you get, because I've been only to a couple, you've been to a lot more at the senior level international competitions, but you get all the fans yelling blue posse, you get that coming from the stands. Does that happen at the junior level, or are there not enough fans there for that?
You know, it really depends. This is my sixth world championship that I've been to. Been to 4 cadet worlds, my first junior world, and it really has nothing to do with the age group. It has to do with the location. When you go to Azerbaijan, if they were having world championships for 9-year-olds, they would have 3,000 people in the stand. Right? I mean, that's just the way it is. If you go to Russia, it's the same way. If you go to Iran, it's the same way. They're loud, and they let the schools out, and every seat is packed, right? And so actually the fan base there in France, that was the smallest world championship I've ever been to. In fact, all the Pan Am games that I've been to was better attended than this one. So there weren't really any fans other than the coaches' families. I don't think Macon, France did a good job at publicizing the event to the local fan base. Taylor, what do you think? That your perception too? Wasn't that the smallest crowd we've ever had?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just wondered, is that kind of a weird experience, Taylor, to have a small fan base compared to, some other events you've wrestled in?
No, I mean, we're all wrestlers. We all know what the fans are like. Well, internationally, there's usually more fans, but I know what it's like in America to wrestle with no fans, and it doesn't bug me. I do it for myself.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I remember taking Nathaniel out, to, I guess it was in Pittsburgh, the U.S. Nationals there, and he had a little bit different mindset than you did. He really kind of fed off the crowd, and then when they got to the championship finals and he was wrestling Bubba Jenkins, by that time it's like you're down to the last 2 wrestlers. The arena is almost completely empty, and he just thought it was kind of bizarre. And so he actually did admit to me it affected him. He enjoyed it when it was energetic, frenzied crowd and stuff like that.
I want to hear both your guys' side of the story of what it was like nerves-wise and stuff. I know, Taylor, you've wrestled in tons of big matches, but knowing that this was your last chance at a world medal, at least at the junior level, knowing what happened last year, you're basically in the same position as you were the year before, and you lost in the semis on a similar situation, it sounds like. What was your head like? What were the nerves like? Was it more nerve-wracking than say your freshman state finals or Fargo finals? Like, kind of compare it to some things that we might be able to relate to and walk us through what was going on in your head through that tournament.
Well, first thing, that was my first year junior, so I still have 2 more levels at this age group.
Oh yeah, because junior goes, yeah.
Yeah, but I've always been really good with the mental aspect of the sport. I've always been super calm, but I've always, for big matches, I'll get a little nervous, little butterflies, and this tournament was actually the first tournament that going into every single match, I had 0% was I scared or nervous. I had 0 butterflies. I wasn't overthinking about the match. I was like, that was the best psychologically prepared I've ever been for a wrestling tournament. And I think that played probably the biggest factor into my wrestling there and how I ended up in the tournament. So I had no fear. We had the coaching staff at Utah Valley flew out a guy. The name is Justin Lua or something like that. I can't pronounce his last name, but he's a sports psychologist. Works with Navy SEALs, NFL teams, MLB teams. Is a amazing guy, and he came out and talked to our team, and I've always been good, but he helped me out a ton, gave me some great tips, and that I flew to France 2 weeks after that, and I felt super confident, and I never felt better in my life. So I actually was super confident, not nervous at all.
Now, we've talked a little bit about your father and his influence. Talk a little bit about Grant. It must be great to have an older brother who, you know, has had a very successful career. And tell us a little bit about Grant's impact on your wrestling.
When I was younger, and then Greg and my dad, and I'm sure a lot of people can agree with this, I am a little more talented than Grant was when it comes to wrestling. But when we were both younger, Grant was a harder work than I was. I went off of more natural ability when I was younger, and Grant worked a little harder, and he kind of earned his a little more. And so that hard work, I remember, I haven't told Greg this, and hopefully he's listening to this, he'll probably laugh, but I remember Greg getting interviewed after a regional tournament or national, kids nationals or something. He was talking about me and Grant, and I think I had done better than Grant even, or something in the tournament. I remember reading the news article in Pocatello. I can't remember what it was about, but Greg was saying that, he said exactly that. Grant works harder than Taylor. Taylor isn't the hardest. I mean, he's a hard worker, but he's a little more natural given ability, and as he grows up, he needs to learn how to work a little harder. And I remember hearing that. And as I look back now, I realize that kind of like hit me to a point that I don't know if that was necessarily the turning point, but I think about that a lot, and not as an insult, but almost like as a motivation. So Grant's really motivated me to work hard. He's always been a good example of that. He's one of the hardest workers I know. He came home off of his mission. Just as cut is leaving. He's this ripped guy off of a 2-year mission. I think just he's disciplined and a hard worker. And that's probably the biggest thing he's done for me.
Well, one thing, too, that's always impressed me about you and Grant is how well you do academically. And I understand you guys play musical instruments and things like that. So tell us a little bit about those influences, I mean, to keep focused in school and kind of have some other interest in how they tie into your wrestling success.
My parents have always been real academic, like they're really academic oriented, and ever since day one in elementary school, I've been encouraged and to get the best grades I can. And all through high school, I took the college classes, and out of all the years, I think there's really only 1 year I overdid it, but I don't regret taking those hard classes, working hard and getting those good grades, because it pays off once you get to college. I mean, me and Grant both are mostly on academic scholarship more than wrestling.
Yeah, we talked a little bit with Coach Williams, and I bet you he appreciates you and others like you that can do that, because that will open up money that he can give to the wrestlers that are maybe don't quite have the academic things going for them. Now, I wanted to, like you said, I wanted to ask Craig this. Have you entertained any thoughts of maybe becoming part of the UVU staff with both Grant and Taylor there? And plus, a lot of these other wrestlers. I know one of the Taylor boys that wrestled at Maple Mountain's there, and Kimball Bastion, and and then you probably worked with a lot of others. I know Ashton Seaton's probably going to be heading.
That might be confidential, Brian.
Well, I don't know if it's confidential. You don't have to answer the question, Craig. But I just wondered if you would if you're planning on taking a different role or some kind of role with the program, or just be a dad in the stands. How's that?
Well, there's actually 11 guys from my club on that team.
Yeah.
Well, 10 because Johnny ended up dropping out, and Tanner is going to junior college now. But at least at one point, we had 11 signed guys from our club, and we'll have a few more hopefully next year, 2 or 3 more, I hope. But so I feel like I've got over a third, almost a half of the guys on that squad have come through my club, which it's a lot more than just my 2 boys. So I'm very tied to it. My role there is primarily funding, donating funds. Secondarily, because you can't have a redshirt coach that's on staff, right? The college coaches can't coach the redshirt guys. So this last year I traveled to every redshirt tournament and coached the guys because I'm not in the room and I'm not a paid staff, so I'm legal to do that.
I didn't realize that was a rule. That's cool. That you
and so, you know, I'm not in their room. I get involved as a mentor. Loft House is assigned to me personally, and I kind of help him through, you know, wherever I can academically and professionally. So I help in a lot of ways. I have no interest coaching at Utah Valley because my love is junior high. You know, everybody wanted to know if I was going to stop doing the grade school kids when my kids got in junior high, and I'm still doing the kindergartners and the first graders, and everybody wanted to know when I was going to give up the junior high when my boys were in high school. I've had 2 boys go all the way through high school, and I'm still the primary coach at Mapleton Junior High, right? That's my only paid wrestling job of my life, and I'm going to stay there until I die or until the church takes me somewhere. But that's my role in life as a developmental coach.
Well, yeah, I didn't mean to, you know, for it to be kind of a hokey question because I truly respect you as a coach, and B, I figured besides Taylor and Grant, you've worked with, you know, almost like third of the roster.
Yeah. Well, we got to keep going. We got to keep building those kids, right?
Yeah, Craig, what is it about that age group that you love so much? Why are you so passionate about building that type of program? Because, why?
I think junior high is the hardest time of life for most people. I think that's where kids either gain a positive identity of themselves or they lose it. I think that's when young ladies start to become self-conscious and turn into, you know, victims and eating disorders and a mess, or they become strong. And it's the same way with young men. You know, I think that's where a young man decides if they're going to work hard or not. I think high school is too late. So I think that's my calling in life is, I mean, I work a lot with high school kids and college kids and grade school kids, but I think junior high is where the human soul is the most malleable from about the age of 12 to 15. And that's my professional stance anyway. And I just love that age group.
Sometimes it's a tough age to teach, coach, and parent and all that. But Craig, I always wanted to ask you, because probably I do admire you most as a parent. You know, she got just fabulous kids. What advice could you give, you know, parents in regards to, you know, handling, you know, their children, it's particularly like wrestlers, you know, when they go through this junior high age? So, because you said it, a lot of wrestlers, that's an age where a lot of kids quit athletics, they quit wrestling.
Yeah.
What do you think is the key to getting through that stage of life, so, you know, things will get better?
I think really comes down to probably one skill, and I don't know if Taylor can verify this or not. You know, I think I'm a good teacher. I think I'm a good coach. I think I do a lot of things pretty well, and I have some weaknesses, right? I mean, got a pretty good sense of humor, and, you know, kids are relatively, they like me. But more than anything, as a parent coach, as a parent and or as a coach or both, I think if you can have an inspiring relationship, that's very different than just having a relationship. If you've got a relationship, that's fine. If you've got a relationship where a kid likes you, that's fine. But until you can actually inspire a young child to make changes and to become better, and if they're not inspired when they're with you, then you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. And so I think the most important thing that people can do as parents and as father coaches and mother coaches is to be an inspiring human being, to be the best they can be, so that 14-year-old kid actually looks up to them rather than being embarrassed by them. You know what I'm saying? And
Oh yeah.
Particularly in wrestling. You know, the hard nose, you know, the last generation of, you know, 2 generations ago, 3 generations ago, that hard nosed, brutal, really come down on your kids hard. You know, I don't buy into that at all. I think it worked for some, but I think it destroyed a lot more than it ever helped. And I think, you know, I'm very much into the modern way of thinking about emotional abuse, and like I don't buy off on that at all. I don't think that's the best way. I don't think it's a good way. Don't agree with it at all. And even though it works for some. So as a dad coach in wrestling in particular, my advice is chill out and treat your kids with dignity and respect, and be an inspiring person to them rather than always trying to belittle them to make them tougher.
It's great advice. We're actually going to get into some of that next week on our podcast too. That's great advice. We'll have to have you back for more of that too, for sure.
Kurt, can I respond to that? When Taylor was saying that he was the most psychologically prepared for this event, can I just tell a story about my experience with him?
Yes, of course, because I was actually going to ask something along those lines, because one thing I point out to my kids at Granger, and by the way, Taylor, I told some of my kids, and shout out to Ivan Siete. He's on my team. He listens to all these podcasts. So shout out to you, Ivan. They told me to tell you that they're your biggest fans. Anyways, but one thing I always point out to them is how we've watched you at tournaments, at state especially, and you can just always tell you're ready physically, you're warmed up, you've broke a sweat. So on that note, yes, tell us about how you prepared him psychologically, because we want to hear that.
Well, you know, honestly, I don't think I did prepare him psychologically, unless you're looking historically. I think I had a lot to do with that behind.
Tell us the story that you had in mind.
But the story here of the World Championships was when I'm at Fargo, when I'm at state, when I'm at even the World Team Trials, coaching my boys, I've learned to do the self-therapy to calm myself down. And the things that I tell myself, this is father self-talk, right? I always remind myself of the bigger picture, meaning my religion, my faith, right? God, the whole perspective. I remind myself of the journey of wrestling and how winning and losing doesn't really matter. And in fact, losing builds more character most of the time. I remind myself of all the joy and the beautiful things that happen with parents and kids when they have healthy relationships through sports. And then I honor and respect the battle, Taylor and Grant's opponents, right? And when I can do that, I can talk myself through those 3 or 4 little quotes in my head. You know, this really doesn't matter. Keep the bigger picture. This is part of the journey. If he gets beat, look at all the cool things he'll learn, right? Then I just completely calm down. And I get so many compliments over the years saying, how can you be so calm? Well, it's because I prioritize what's most important, and winning never is, right? And so for me, when I get to the World Championships, when Grant first made the World Team, now Taylor's been on it 4 times in a row, I go crazy emotionally. Like I forget to say all those things, and I just get really pure and raw as a fan, as a dad fan. And so I get actually more nervous at the World Championships than I get all season long. And I think it's because I'm not trying to impress anybody, and I'm just there enjoying it as a dad, right? So I was actually pretty nervous. And so here's the story. Taylor goes out there, right? He's been to camp after camp after camp. He's in and out of Colorado Springs, northern Michigan, right? All summer he's training with senior level guys, you know, the Olympic team. He's made it through pretty much without injury. He shows up the first day of acclimation camp in Germany, dislocates a ribs, got a back injury. So he goes through the entire camp and really can't do much, right? He's in excruciating amount of pain. They can't fix it. He gets it to the German chiropractors and the trainers, and nothing's getting better. In fact, it's getting worse. And so he's calling me and texting me, and I'm like trying to coach him through that. And so I'm starting to get tense. And then I start thinking, okay, he's a first year. Then I'm looking at the brackets, and I'm looking at all these world champions in his weight. And then I'm thinking about, you know, and I start just telling myself, this doesn't really matter, right? Like, he's going to do fine. I hope he just wins a match. But I was really nervous and excited because, on the other hand, I know how good he's gotten over the last year, and I know he can compete with any of these guys and beat them all. So I'm just hoping for the best. So when I show up there to France, because I didn't go to the acclimation camp in Germany. I show up on the day of weigh-ins.
So how long was he there before you got there? How long was his camp?
He was about 8 days before I showed up. And
Okay.
and then so I show up, and I'm expecting him to be stressed out and a little bit nervous and concerned about his conditioning and concerned about the pain and concerned about the brackets and the weight. And he was just like, he was as relaxed as I've ever seen him. Like, legitimately more relaxed than I've ever seen him in his life. He was happy. He was engaging. And he's like, no, don't worry about it, right? He hadn't gone live wrestling for those 9 days since he hurt his back. And even after weigh-ins, and he's warming up that morning, right? And I'm watching him. I'm like, you know, can he do his straight lifts? Because he's been working on all these straight lifts. Can you do that with a bad back? And he did everything perfect and came out. He's feeling pretty good. And through the whole tournament, he just was relaxed. And finally, he gets the bronze medal match. And the same story that you were telling before, Kurt, it's like, okay, this happened last year. This is his 4th time. He wants a medal. It's his whole goal in life. Let's get that world medal. And it could be taken away, and, you know, he could lose. And I'm starting to get all nervous. And he goes back to the hotel with me, and he just took a nap. Like, most guys would be so wired at that point that they wouldn't be able to sleep. He literally took a nap. I went out for a run, little workout. I come back, he's sleeping peacefully. We get up, you know, he grabs a snack. We head over to the venue. He gets taped up, you know, he gets a massage from the trainer. And I'm like, so do you need to re-warm up? He's like, no, I'm good. You know, he's just sitting there, just relaxing, just chatting it up. And we didn't watch the opening ceremonies. We just sat back there, and he didn't get tied up in anything. He walked out, and he was literally, I asked him specifically, I said, you know, how are you feeling? He's like, Dad, I'm not worried at all. He's like, I'm completely fine, just completely relaxed. And I was just so impressed with that, even between the rounds when he was down 3-0 going into the second round. And he came over, and I'm like doing his arms, and his face, everything told me that he was completely confident and relaxed, and that he was just going to go out and do what he needed to do. So that was a really fun experience for me as a dad, and very impressed as a dad. Like, it kind of blew me away that psychologically he was like ice, which is pretty cool.
I think he's going to carry that into this next level of his wrestling.
I think he will.
Taylor, tell me, you know, you said
That's a cool story, Greg. Thanks for bringing that up. That's cool.
You're welcome.
Taylor, tell us a little bit. What 1 or 2 things did you get from that sports psychologist that maybe you could share with the rest of us? Maybe it was a little bit different. That maybe you hadn't heard, or maybe a little different twist on things.
So there's a couple things that he told me. I'll pull it up in the notes so I can get exactly what he's saying. But the first thing, it was just self-talk, and I've always been told to self-talk all the time. You don't want to get the negatives in there. And he explained it. He explained your mind as a cup, and there's all these negative thoughts, like, what if I get taken down in trap arm? I mean, my second year as a cadet, I was ahead 4-0. First match, got taken down in trap arm, and I was tech fault. Like, if you get trap arm, it's over. So that's a negative thought that can be in your mind. Negative thought could be, my back hurts or something. And so he explains your mind as a cup, and all these negative thoughts are coming in it, and you can't let those negative thoughts fill your cup. So you have to self-talk enough, and your mind can't hold all these thoughts at once. So if you tell yourself enough of these positive things, those negative things are going to go away. That was the first thing. And the second thing really had to do with my back. He told a story of the lone survivor. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, the Navy SEAL. They got stuck behind enemy lines, and I'm sure all those people listening, I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. So the lone survivor, he was talking to this guy. He's worked with these Navy SEALs, and he actually, when he was underneath that rock, when he had broken bones, he had like 10 bulbs in him or whatever. He'd watch all of his friends die. He can't move, and he's about dead. And there's a village like 6-7 miles away, and he decided to just draw a line. He would reach out with a rock, draw a line. And he told himself, "I'm gonna try to get over that line, and if I make it over that line, I'm gonna draw another line." And until he's gonna die. So the saying is, draw a line, then get to it, and draw another one. And so with my back, I knew my back was hurt. I hadn't even wrestled. I didn't practice 6 days up to my tournament. It just hurt that I couldn't even bend down and look at my toes for a couple of those days. So I just told myself I gotta draw a line and get to it. So my first match, I was down 4-0. I drew a line. I was like, I need to score that first point so I could get thrown and tech 8-0 immediately. So I need to get that first point to get a little cushion. I drew that line. I got that. And then I needed to get a takedown. I got that. Then I needed to get my turn, and I got that. So that was the second thing. Draw a line and get to it and draw another one. And the last thing that probably helped me the most is don't focus on what they're going to do to you. You have to focus what you're going to do to them. That was probably the biggest thing for me, is I just have to focus on my moves. I can't go out there and think, like, what happens if he pushes me more than I push him? What happens if I can't arm drag him? Like, I have to think, like, I need to get to my 2-on-1. I need to get to my underhook. That was probably the 3 biggest things that helped me.
Have you read Dan Gable's book, the one that Schulte wrote with him?
No, I haven't. I need to, though.
There's a chapter in it where he talks about his one loss in the national finals, and he doesn't explain why. I don't think he really knows why, but he says, looking back on it, the one thing that was different about that tournament or that match versus all his other competitions was that for some reason he came into that tournament and started worrying about what, I forget his name. What's his name? Owens. Yeah, Larry Owens. He's like, well, I started worrying about what he was doing. He said he never watched his opponent's matches leading up to the finals and stuff, and he did for some reason at this national tournament. And he watched him. And he remembers going in the match just thinking, stay out of his cradle. Stay out of his cradle. Apparently, he had a good cradle. And he said he'd never done that. That was like the one thing looking back that was different from everything else. He always just did what you talked about, worrying about his own, what he was going to do to the other guy. And when he started worrying about what the other guy might do to him, that was his one loss,
Yeah.
Strong stuff, Taylor.
Good stuff. Quick question, Craig or Taylor, I'd love to hear from you both, is what's your prognosis or for UVU wrestling? What do you expect to see in the next few years from the Wolverines?
Taylor, you go first.
Along with that, Taylor, we want to hear your personal goals there as well.
All right. Well, first thing, this year I plan on redshirting, so we'll go with that. If I'm redshirting this year, I mean, we have a solid lineup. We have Mitch Brown, who just had a really tough tournament at universities in freestyle, and I wrestle with him a lot, and I know how tough he is. And how tough mentally he is, and I think he's going to do great things. Jared Main's 133-pounder. Right now, me and him are. I mean, I can hardly take him down. We're about even right now. He might even have the edge. I haven't wrestled him enough yet. He's going to do amazing this year. He's tough, and he's a goer. I'll wrestle with him for 20 minutes, and he doesn't get tired. He'll break guys, and he doesn't get broken. So I think he's going to do great. And I could go through the whole lineup, but I think that there's the environment in the room has changed. I remember going to practice.
You could bump up to 49.
Yeah. 49. Grant, he's got his lungs back. He's in shape now. He's strong. I mean, when he first got back off his mission, I was wrestling with him, and I could wrestle with him because even though he's bigger than me, his technique was off because he was gone for so long and he was tired. So I could wrestle him, but now he's got the technique back and he's got the lungs back. So now he just beats me up when we wrestle. So I'm super excited to watch him. I think if he gets he's got the physical, he's got the technique, and I think if he can get that psychological side, that he can be an All-American for sure.
Did you remind us who the 41-pounder was that Greg was really high on?
I think Greg was talking about Trevor Wilson. He's probably the slickest wrestler in the room. He's fun to wrestle, but along with that with Chase Call, Chase is a rock solid. I mean, he's not going to go up the spotter easy, so both those guys will be tough. But through the whole lineup, like what I was saying is, I remember going to watch UVU practices when I was little. I'd watch the team, and even at a younger age, like I was almost like disappointed. Not really disappointed, but just like surprised watching those guys. I mean, I'd watch them live wrestling, and someone would get a takedown, and they'd get away, and then they'd like stand up for like 10, 15 seconds or tie their shoe or something. When in reality, especially in a college room, you just need to be on 100%. I just remember watching just little things like that, or just watching them drill. But now, a year in the room, I think the loft houses have played a huge role in it, and it's just intense. I mean, right now I'm taking a break, so I'm not wrestling, but I'm watching practices, and everyone's working hard. I'm excited for the team this year. But as the years go down, I bet next year and probably next year we'll have almost all freshmen, sophomores in the lineup, and we'll still be, I think, top 20. And then as we go through there, we're gonna build up. I think by my junior year, we're gonna be in contention for a team trophy, hopefully. So.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And I told Greg last week I kind of see the corner being turned. You know, the level, the blue chip recruits and things like that. So, Craig, how do you see things? You've watched the UVU for a long time. Actually, the program's been around for 15 years now.
Yeah, here's my theory. First of all, you have to know my personality. I'm an optimist, right? I know
you are. Yeah.
I love some of these Gladwell books, and I love the concept of studying the 1% that's different. The 99th percentile guys. I get a huge kick out of figuring out what is unique about the people who overachieve. And the best sports movies of all time, right? Whether you're talking about, hockey against the Russians, or, whatever the big sports story is, it's all about the team or the person that nobody believed in, that was the underdog, the Rocky Balboa thing, right? And I just think, you look at what Boise State did just 4 years ago or so, and where they're ranked at one point, ranked number 2 or number 1 in the country, right? They didn't finish that strong because of some injuries and things, but the parity in Division I wrestling is not what it was. Yeah, it's much better now than what it was, and the level of technique and the number of good kids and the number of great programs. I believe that the biggest key to college success for a team is recruiting. And when you look at our All-Americans so far, we've got 2 All-Americans. We've got Ben Kerr, we've got Jade Rouser, right? Those 2 guys were also in high school national champs, right? And how many other guys won national championships that have been on that team for the last 15 years, right? So basically, if you look at our recruiting history, we recruited 2 national champions in the last 15 years. Both those guys are All-Americans. We have, I think there's 16 or 17 national titles in that room this week, right now. And they're all redshirting or freshmen or sophomores, right? Like literally, even the older guys in the room, no offense to them, but those guys aren't the guys with the accolades. They aren't the blue chip recruits. And we don't just have 1 or 2, right? It's not the Grant and Taylor show. We've got Matt Finley, right, that's going to be redshirting this year. We got a whole bunch of guys. There's a bunch of them. Yeah, the list goes on, and the recruiting is not going to stop there. So I don't think for a second that we couldn't win a national title at Utah Valley. Now, I've been around, whether we're top 3, whether we're top 2, whether we're top 5, anything's better than what we've been in the last 15 years, right? And I'm not only believing it, but I'm predicting it. And one of the things that I kind of get a kick out of is the diehard wrestling junkies like me from around Utah that have watched my boys progress. They all fall, so many of them, not all of them, but so many of them fall into this thing as, look, you got to go Big 12. Like, why waste your time? Why try to build the homegrown school? Why do this? Why take the risk? It'll never work. It never does work. Well, that's not true, right? It's never, one of the best wrestlers in the history of our country, Les Gutches, right? He stayed home. He wrestled with his home fans and so that his family and his buddies could watch him. And he was awesome, right? And he won all the levels. And
let's just take BYU. There was one time they finished 4th in the country. Yeah. That's a model. Boise State, I think that's maybe even a more appropriate level or model because, they probably weren't known as a power. And all of a sudden, like you said, they got some good recruits.
Yeah.
A couple of them were Utah boys, in fact.
Yeah.
And, and then they were contending. You never know with injuries.
You never know.
Plays a factor, but they had, like you said, the talent in the room.
Here's what we've got. We've got a great coaching staff. We've got the talent in the room. We're not just one deep anymore, right? Not that we were ever one deep, but we're more than one deep in many ways. We've got full financial support. We've got a tough mentality, right? The old mentality of we can't even go to postseason because of the 7-year. I mean, that whole generation is gone. There's no reason why we can't do well. Now, injuries are a big deal, and but all it takes is 3 guys in the top 3, right? If we can get 7 guys qualified, or 8 or 9 or 10, and win matches with 3 of them and place 3 in the top 3, I'm telling you right now, knowing the mentality of these guys, the Kimballs and the Grants and the Taylors and the DJs, and there's a bunch of those guys that are not going to be happy unless they're on top of that podium. And I just think it's going to happen.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Like I said, it's great to be around you because you do have that positive energy, and I tell the fans to be positive because, like I said, there's history there. I know BYU, they did it with a lot of out-of-state guys, but they also had some in-state guys on the team. And guess what? UVU has out-of-state guys on the team that are going to play crucial roles. I think,
look at University of Northern Iowa. Look at Missouri. Yeah.
Go ahead, Craig.
I said, look at Missouri. Look at their history. Where were they 10 years ago? Where were they 15 years ago? And look at the dominance. I mean, those guys are tough. North Carolina State, right? You've got teams popping up all over the place that are giving legitimate runs to the dominant teams, the Iowas, the Penn States, the Oklahoma States. And I just think it's, we've got as good a chance as anybody. Let's just put it that way. We stay healthy, we're going to be in that top rung.
Is there any ingredients that Utah wrestling community can throw in there to push things forward?
The number one thing that we do not have, and this is going to be a little bit of a knock on our own faith, maybe, right? Like the dominant faith around here, but we do not have financial support. And it's the one thing that every single Division I wrestling program around the country has more financial support from their fans than we do at Utah. And in Utah, we have very, very few donors. Most of us pay our tithing and we're done, or we give to something else and we're done giving money. But I'm telling you, if we want to keep recruiting at the top level, we got to have better facilities. We got to have more money for more coaches. We got to have more club coaches. We've got to be able to have more of a recruiting budget. But we don't have the money to compete long term, unless we keep producing stars right out of Utah that want to stay home. So that's our biggest weakness. I think it's our biggest challenge. It's one of my personal goals is to try to get people to open up their pocketbooks and start if we could get 100 people to donate $50 a month over 10-year for a 10-year commitment, I mean, that would do huge deals.
Well, I think you want a fan base too, because like Taylor, he's great. He can go out there, and no matter if the room's empty or full. But I think we'll probably have some kids that'll feed on, you go out there and the Iowa crowd is behind you, and you got boosters and thousands of people cheering for you. I think that helps make a difference, and I'd rather see more of that than a small handful of us that get out there and stuff like that. And so I think that comes with money and everything else,
Yeah. And I think that'll happen. I mean, all we need to do is bring Altamont and Monticello up. I mean, I'm not kidding. We've got so many good wrestling fans here. We just need a team they can get excited about. PG alone, right? You take the Pleasant Grove fans. I love Maple Mountain, but our fans are way too quiet. You know what I mean? We don't pack the stands. Yeah. But Pleasant Grove fans, holy smoke, that school alone, and they've got guys on the team, right? We're going to hopefully have a heavyweight All-American out of that school, maybe this year. So I think our fan base will step it up, but I hope they bring their checkbooks instead of just paying the entry fee. I hope they all.
I think it's a two-edged thing, but I think maybe kept Boise State back. You're there, and you're just not quite at the level with fandom and money at Penn State and Iowa and stuff like that. So Kurt, anything else chat about or?
I just want to thank you guys for being on. I love the sports psychology side of this one. I'm going to write a little I usually just send Jeff the link to email out, but I'm going to write a little marketing paragraph for him to send out, telling people they need to see this one, this show. So thanks for being on, Taylor and Craig.
You're welcome. Thanks for doing this. It's a big part of our future in this state, doing stuff like what you guys are doing. So appreciate it.
And Craig, if somebody heard this and it tugged at their heartstrings and they want to make a donation to UVU Wrestling, how contact you? What's the best way to go about that?
Yeah, I do all of my donations right through USA Wrestling. So contact me or Jeff Newby, and you can donate to USA Wrestling. 100% of it gets into the university, and you can tell us where you want it.
WrestlingUtah.com, probably way to go to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well, next week we got a cool podcast coming up. In fact, this podcast was perfect leading up to it. We're going to first off, we're going to introduce or debut. What's the right word I'm looking for here? Reveal the top 10 incoming freshmen for this year's class, and I don't know who's choosing this top 10. Newbie's going to give us the list.
Newbie.
We'll call it the Priest Power Rankings.
No, nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do. We can't put that name on it. Is that trademark?
Yeah, Newbie's replaced me. He's the guru of
The Newbie News, we'll call it. We got the Newbie News coming next week with the top 10 incoming freshmen. And then after that, we're going to follow it up with a conversation with this guy I don't know very well named Michael Clapier, who wrote a book about coaching kids. He wrote a book about parenting this generation of lazy kids. And the book's actually called Coaching Young Couch Potatoes. And it's not just about wrestling, although that's a lot of it, but he has had years, 30, 40 years of coaching youth sports. And
let me ask Craig something. Doesn't Kurt here, doesn't he look like a young Mike? It's beginning to spook me out.
He does. Kurt, is that book kind of like a biography on your life, or what is this?
You know what? My brother's got more pages in it than I did.
All right, okay.
I think they were more recent, so he remembers those stories better.
All right.
I got to embarrass Kurt again. Kurt, I coached Kurt in baseball. I think it was Babe Ruth baseball or something.
Yep. Like 7th or 8th grade.
Yeah, he was my little second baseman, Craig.
Right on.
He was a hard worker. He was a good.
Yep.
So he wasn't the couch potato then. That's good.
No,
I was not a couch potato. It's actually about a little bit about what you mentioned, where the old school of just yelling at kids doesn't work, and how if we coach both as coaches and if we parent more responsibly, and use sports for that, we'll raise more responsible citizens through athletics, and especially wrestling, since that's what we love. So we'll have him on, Mike Clapier, next week, 7 o'clock. 7's typically the time, but since we're dealing with so many people's schedules, just forgive us and bear with us if the time has to change. Like tonight, I had a homecoming thing. That's why we pushed it back. So anyway, 7 o'clock next week. We'll post the link on High School Wrestling Matches Facebook page, and also Newbie, I think, puts it on the USA Utah page, and I believe he's emailing them out. If not, I'll tell him to. So thanks, guys.
Hey, congratulations, Taylor.
Thank you.
Yeah, Taylor, that was awesome, man. Bronze medal.
Way to do it.
Hey, one last question, Taylor. Are these matches only available on Flow Pro, or can I get them somehow to share them with people?
I'm sure they're on YouTube, maybe, but if not, then I don't know what Flow does. Usually they'll be on Flow Pro for a while, and then after a while they'll make it so the public can watch them. But I'm not sure the plans right now.
If you find them before me, send them to me so I can
All right.
share them with people. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.